In many of our churches across the nation, there is a designated Sunday in September that is called Ingathering, or the Water Communion, or the Gathering of Waters, or whatever language your congregation can live with. So when I was a newcomer to Unitarian Universalism all these years ago, I didn't get it. You could close church in the summer? You could suspend services and not have church? Well, I found out there's a little more to it than that. The mythology behind summers off and ingathering after a summer hiatus comes from good old New England. Think about summers there. Some of you know about heat and humidity from other places, but it's particularly bad there as well as in the South. And so congregants would go to their summer houses on the shore. But what happened is they also took their minister with them. So services carried on. Now, I need you to know that I have many ideas of hell, but going on vacation with my congregation ranks pretty near at the top. So when the weather shifted and the cool winds started again, folks returned to their homes in Boston and all the other cities surrounding, and the clergy person would as well. And so they called that the sort of ingathering, because what had scattered returned. And as historian Susan Ritchie says, or surmised, she thinks it's actually associated with the first harvests. I have no idea when ingathering and the water ceremony got hooked up, or how the original intent behind the water ritual was lost. But my guess is that many of you here have no idea how this ritual was born. So let me fill you in a bit. In 1975, a woman from a Lexington, Massachusetts congregation served as the UU delegate to the United Nations Women's Year Assembly in Mexico. And when she came back, she returned with the notion that religion, including Unitarian Universalism, was a chief culprit in the perpetuation of the oppression of sexism. Upon her return, she and others penned what would become the Women and Religion Resolution passed by the 1977 General Assembly. That resolution called for an intensive examination of the sexism inherent in religious literature and institutions, beginning with the UUA itself. As an aside, this is much like the work we are all being called to do right now around the issue of white supremacy and race in our denomination and in our wider culture. The UUA president at that time was Paul Carn. He put together a committee to work on the resolutions, and districts were encouraged to support related women in religion groups. What rose out of these groups was a very harsh critique of our principles and purposes that had been created with our newly formed coming together of the Universalists and the Unitarians in 1961. The language of the dignity of mankind needed to go. And what was added was an insistence that the earth and its care be a priority. The 1985 principles and purposes as we know them today were passed by the General Assembly. But the water ritual, it was created for a worship service for a gathering of women, a gathering of the UU Women and Religion Continental Convocation that was held in Lansing, Michigan in 1980. The theme of the convocation was coming home, like rivers to the sea. It was designed by Carolyn McDade, who many of you know as the author of The Spirit of Life, number 123 in our hymnal, and Lucille Shuck Longview. Different attendees had been asked to bring water from the places where they lived, water that held special meaning for them. Carolyn McDade describes what happened as the women gathered in a semicircle around a large earthen bowl. It was a ritual of women's being connected by a universal symbol, water. A ritual of women being connected to the totality of life, making our way like rivers from places distant and near. We come together to give shape to a new spirituality, recognizing that we see that we must question every box, every definition, every assignment from an authority outside of our own beings so that we can create and recreate for ourselves the rituals and symbols that give meaning to us. So we come together to question, to hear, to share, to speak, to inspire, and to celebrate through new rituals, knowing that our energy and our love are transforming. Celebrating our connectedness, we choose water as our symbol of our empowerment. And as the women spoke and heard one another into speech, here's what was said by Jean Bramedette. And you're going to have to apologize because I'm going to butcher this word. Is it the Assiniboine River in Winnipeg? Assiniboine, thank you, river in Winnipeg. And she writes, I bring water from Canada, from the north, from the prairies. This water comes from the Assiniboine River, which ultimately flows into the Hudson Bay. The water from this river is very important to me because I live on this river. It is almost an extension of my living room. And constantly I observe the changes. Sometimes it flows fast and sometimes slowly, quite a bit like my own moods and my life. I have listened at night to the boom and crack of ice flows breaking as winter turns into spring. I have watched helplessly as a man drowned in the fast-moving waters from its banks. I have observed with pleasure the blue herons receiving sustenance. I have enjoyed the river in all of its seasons, skating in the winter, canoeing in the summer. But most of all, the river is a symbol of the lasting power of life. The physical part of me may die, but like the river, my spirit will live on. So the women poured their waters into the bowl, and each one of them was encouraged to take some of that commingled water home with them. Now, how this ritual, born of anger and exclusion and pain, became a travelogue in most of our churches is a mystery. I don't happen to believe in one in-gathering service because I believe in church 52 Sundays of the year. Someone is going to walk through all these doors in need of us, and we need to be here. The fact that most of you here in Oregon stop coming to church when the weather allows you to play hard outside and return when school or the rains begin is no special reason for a special celebration. Because, my friends, in-gathering is something that we do every Sunday. It is not a practice set apart. We gather ourselves into this place, and by our intent and our hopes and aspirations, create religious community. The gathering of the waters of our lives is sacred. For we are made of the stuff of stardust and whatever emerged from those vents in the sea. So this morning, we celebrate the waters of our lives. In the back of the room, there is a very large bowl that some of you have already poured water into with meaning only that you know. If you have not brought any water, there's still time for you to just rush back to that bowl and add a little bit of water to it. And then Christina will bring it forward for Katy and Sarah and I to add some special waters. You can always add it after the service as well. Can you play a little more of the waterfall?
To this water we add these waters. First, grief. Grief is the thread that binds us together as a human community. We live with the awareness that everyone we love and hold dear will die, as will we, and we can't predict how or when. With this awareness comes the capacity to treat one another with great tenderness and compassion. We share our grief to build these capacities and to offer a beacon of hope to others who suffer. We are not alone.
And to these waters, we offer the waters of playfulness and laughter. Playfulness and laughter lubricate our souls, birth creativity, and allow us to carry on with hope and good cheer against all odds. Playfulness and laughter aren't practical, and yet they are essential in sustaining ourselves along the way.
To these waters, we add cleansing and healing. This is the metaphoric exhale, the letting go of old wounds, heartbreaks, and assumptions, so that we can move cleanly, joyfully, and optimistically toward the next leg of the journey.
And to these waters, we add life. The waters of life represent the beautiful, tangled mess that is our lives, the love and loss, the joy and sorrow, the light and dark. Many of the most significant experiences in our life don't fall into easy categories, but rather bittersweet amalgamations of emotion.
My friends, may these waters, the offerings of our lives, be blessed and blessed and blessed.